All right, so today we're going to learn about the law of cosines, and we'll also still apply the law of sines and how to know which one to use. Here are our learning targets. All right, so what is the law of cosines and how is it used? Well, here is the law of cosines, and you notice it's rather long. Really, here it says, I just kind of want to point out a few different items to make sure we're clear. You've got, let's just look at this first one. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of a. So you'll notice a, if you're looking for side A, then you have angle A here, and then BC, BC, okay? So really you have to kind of determine which one to use based on what you know, and that's really, notice the pattern is the same here. If this is B, then you've got angle B here. You've got AC, AC, okay? So that happens for all three of those. So really just kind of figure out what do you need and how to apply it. Now it says here use when you're given side angle side or side side side. But ultimately what I like to do first is just say, can I use the law of sines? If you can use the law of sines, go for it. It's a little quicker. If you can't, then you have to use the law of cosines. So really that's when you want to use these. And remember, law of sines and cosines are when you don't have a right triangle. You have to use one of these. Okay. So here we are going to do quite a bit of work. One of the first things you'll do is draw a triangle. So use the given measurements to solve triangle ABC, round to the nearest tenth. Remember, solve means find all the missing parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a triangle. And when you draw the triangle, don't worry about what it looks like. It's just a reference. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm just going to make a triangle, and I don't really care if it's actually accurate other than the fact that I'm just using it as a reference. So here's my triangle ABC, and side A is right here. That's across from angle A, so that's 8. Side B is 5. It's across from angle B. And angle C is 32.2 degrees. So in here, I am going to write 32.2 degrees. All right. So now what I'm trying to find is the missing stuff, remember. So the missing stuff here, let's just do in blue. Our missing stuff would be side C, okay? Also angle A and angle B. Okay, so those are the three things that I'm going to solve for. And you'll notice I can't use the law of sines because I need the angle and its corresponding side. I have one angle, but I don't have its corresponding side here, so that's not going to work. So that's how I know I have to use the law of cosines. So just check that. If you can use the law of sines, it'll be faster. So I'm trying to find side C. So in order to use the formula, law of cosines, I'm going to start with c squared, right? Now you can look at here. Now these letters are going to change depending on what you have, but since our triangle is ABC as well, I can use this same thing. It says c squared. I'm really just kind of, looking right here. Okay, c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2 times a times b times cosine of c. So I just know the pattern is always the same, so I'm going to say c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab times the cosine of angle C. Okay. And now I'm going to replace what I know. I don't know C, side C, but I do know the other ones. So A is 5. So I'm going to write, or I'm sorry, is 8. 8 squared plus B is 5 squared, 5. So 5 squared minus 2 times 8 times 5 times the cosine of angle C, which is 32.2 degrees. Now, I want to type this into my calculator. I know the whole thing, so I'm going to get an answer, but that will be equal to c squared. So I'll still have something else to do. So this is going to be c squared when I type that in. So I'm going to take a second right now and do that. I can type this whole thing in just the way I wrote it. Again, make sure your calculator is in degrees. I've already done that. So here we go. We're going to go 8 squared plus 5 squared minus 2 times 8 times 5, and then times cosine of 32.2. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter, and I get 21.3. Okay, now I'm not going to round this. You might want to write this here, but I'm going to leave that in my calculator the way I have it. So I'm going to put 21.3. Okay, now I need to take the square root of both sides so I can figure out what C is. Don't forget this last step. Some people just stop here, forget to square root. Now, in order to get the most accurate answer possible, I could type in the whole thing, 21.304, but your calculator will put that in the next line. If you see right above the negative sign at the very bottom, right here, right above in blue, it says ANS for answer. Okay, so if I just, that'll take the previous answer. So what I'm actually going to do is go the square root, and then I want to take that whole answer from the previous line. I'm just going to go second, and then that negative sign will put my answer from the previous line in there. Then I don't have to type it in. And now there, that's the most accurate answer, and that's what I want, 4.6. So we're going to use that strategy a couple times today. 4.6 is rounded to the nearest tenth, which is what I'm supposed to do. Okay. I've just used the law of cosines, and so this answer here is 4.6. Okay, now if it might be helpful to also put it on my triangle so I know what I have. Now notice I have sides C and angle C, so now I can use the law of sines to find my angles. You can use the law of cosines to do that, but it's just more work. So I'm going to use the law of sines now to find these other angles, or at least angle. I think I'm going to do angle A. So I'm going to say sine of 32.2 degrees. That's angle C, so over side C. And now I'm going to find angle A. So I'm going to say sine of angle A over side A, which is 8. Okay, now remember, here we cross multiply. So on this side, I'm going to have 8 times sine of 32.2 degrees is equal to 4.6 times sine of angle A. Now notice this time we have an angle, so this is a little different than what we did on our last lesson. So now to solve for angle A, I still have to get rid of that 4.6, so I'm going to divide by 4.6 on both sides. Okay, these cancel, and I get sine of A, but it's not just A, it's sine of A, so I have to type this in. So I'm going to do that now into my calculator. I'm going to type that in. Be careful when you type it in. I'm going to go sine, there we go, oh, I should say 8 times sine of 32.2. Now at this point, make sure you hit enter. I'm going to leave that whole thing in there, just press divided by, and then 4.6 is what we're going to divide by. Now I'm going to leave that answer in there, so that's 0.9267. I'm going to write that on my... Now, I am going to continue to make sure my answer is the most accurate. So to get angle A, I need to do the inverse sine of both sides. So I'm going to use that strategy we just learned with our calculator. I'm going to say inverse sine. Now, I want that whole answer to go in there. So I'm going to say second answer down at the bottom there to get that whole answer, 0.92674134, etc. in there. And that'll give me the most accurate answer, which is 67.9. Now this is an angle, so this would be 67.9 degrees. And again, I did the inverse sine of both sides to get that. Okay, so I'm going to write that here, 67.9 degrees. Now I need to find angle B. In order to do that, now I know that this is 67.9 degrees. So I could just add this up and take away from 180. So that's what I'm going to do. That's easier than doing anything else. So 32.2 plus 67.9 gives me 100.1. So I just go 180 minus 100.1, and I get 79.9. So my last angle, this one will be 79.9 degrees. All right, so we've used lots of strategies here to solve that triangle, but these would be the three things that I'd be looking for. Make sure you are careful with your calculator work and employ some of those strategies we just talked about. Okay, let's try one more to make sure you've got it. Again, sometimes you might be given all three sides, no angles. So then how does this work? And again, there's a little bit of trickiness with this one as well. Okay, so I'm going to draw a triangle first. Again, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. Just label it ABC or whatever letters they give you. They give us ABC here. So this is 8, B is 9, C is 7. Remember, always across from the angle. So now I don't have an angle this time, so really what I'm finding this time is all the angles. So I'm looking for A, B, and C. Now, again, once again, I cannot use law of sines, so always try to start there, and then that's a good indicator that you have to use law of cosines. I don't have an angle and its corresponding side, so I know that I'm going to have to use law of cosines here. So I'm just going to start with angle A, so I'm going to write my law of cosines is going to be a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of A. Okay, now A we know is 8, so I'm going to put 8 squared equals 9 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 9 times 7. But I don't know angle A. That's what I'm trying to solve for. So I have all of this information, so I'm going to type this in. I know this is 64. That's 81 and 49. I can put those together. So you can just type that into your calculator if you want to go 9 squared plus 7 squared. You get 130. I can't do the other part because I don't have all the information. So this would be 130. And then minus, I should do 2 times 9 times 7. So 2 times 9 times, 2 times 9 times 7. Gives me 126 times the cosine of A. Now I wrote this on purpose because here's something that a lot of people make a mistake on. They subtract these two numbers. You cannot do that. I know you're stressed. You cannot do that. The reason is because this still has a cosine A multiplied by the 126, so I can't subtract those. So make sure you do not make that mistake. I cannot subtract 130 and 26, okay? What I have to do first is I have to subtract 130. So I have to go minus 130 from both sides to solve for A. So this, if I go 64 minus 130, I'm going to get negative 66. These cancel. And now I have negative, don't forget that negative there, negative 126 times the cosine of A. Okay, now I need to get that cosine of A by itself, so now I need to divide by negative 126 on both sides. Okay, and now I'm going to type that in my calculator. I know that, there we go. A little struggle there. These cancel out, so I'm going to go negative 66 divided by negative 126. Okay, and I get that. I'm going to write that down, but again, I don't want to round it, so it's 0.5238, etc., equals cosine of A. Now, in order to get A, I need to take the inverse cosine of both sides, which means that, right? Inverse of that, cosine of that. So here we go. We're going to go inverse cosine of the previous answer. So I'm going to use that second answer again. And then that will give me the whole thing there. So I have 58.4 is my answer for that angle. So this would be 58.4 degrees. Okay, so be careful with that. Not a lot of calculator work, but a couple of things you need to remember about order of operations. So don't forget that. So this is 58.4 degrees. And I could maybe write it in here as well. Okay, now angle B, now I do have a side and an angle that correspond. I have angle A and side A. So I'm going to use law of sines now. That's faster. So let's go do that. So I'm going to say, let's see, sine of 58.4 over its side is 8 over, let's just do B since that's the next one there. Sine of B over 9. Okay, cross multiply. We're going to get 9 times sine of 58.4 degrees. And then 8 times sine of B. All right, now I'm going to solve for B. So step 1 is to get rid of that 8. Now I'm going to type this into my calculator. And okay, I got 9 times sine of 58.4. Hit enter. And I'm going to divide by 8. Don't forget to hit enter there. Okay, so that's 0.9518. Okay, now I'm going to take the inverse sine of that answer, and that will give me my angle B. So, oh, it's 8.1, I think. I wrote that wrong. Okay, so I'll fix that here on the next. So, second sine, so I get the inverse, and now I'm going to take that answer, plug it in there. You get 73.4. degrees. And I need to do a little fix of this. That should be 9, 5, 8, 1, 9, etc. All right, so now that's my next angle. I get 73.4 degrees. I'm going to add those two together, 58.4 and 73.4, and take it away from 180. Okay, that's 131.8, so now I'll just take that away from 180. We get 42.8, so that's my last angle. Oh, 48.2, struggle. There we go. All right, so now I know all three angles. Quite a bit of work. Be careful with your calculator work when you're doing these. Take your time so you don't make little mistakes. Watch your order of operations. That's really important for this as well. And that's really it. Now, also make sure you should be able to use like law of cosines to solve a triangle or to solve any kind of word problem now. So something like this. just make sure you take a look at this problem and make sure you could handle something like that as well. All right, so you have 6 problems using law of sines and cosines, starting with law of cosines and then often going into the law of sines. Good luck. Hope this makes sense.